Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. The hum of the evening was settling in as I lounged in the living room, the television murmuring in the background. Mary had been more distant lately, lost in her phone more often than not. Tonight, she was out again, another late work meeting, she said. Suspicion had gnawed at me for weeks, and in a moment of impulse, I picked up her tablet which she'd left charging on the side table. The screen lit up to a notification, missed call from Jay. It flashed briefly before the lock screen veiled it away. My fingers trembled as I entered her usual code, 1234, the simplicity of the password mocking me. It worked. The call history opened up, and there it was, a number not saved but frequently dialed. My heart raced as I copied the number into my own phone. With a deep breath that did little to calm my pounding heart, I dialed. The line trilled thrice before a voice answered, cautious yet unmistakably male. Hello. Hi, I'm Tom, Mary's husband, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. There was a pause, a silent moment that felt like an eternity. Her what? The confusion in his voice was palpable, a mix of surprise and disbelief. Yeah, her husband. Who are you? I pressed on, needing to understand the depth of the betrayal. I'm Jay. Look, I had no idea she was married. We met at a conference a few months back, and she never mentioned the husband. I swear. His voice was a cocktail of regret and shock. The conversation confirmed my worst fears. Mary was cheating on me. The foundation of our 10-year marriage crumbled in those few minutes. Rage bubbled within me, a red-hot flow of betrayal and hurt. I hung up without another word, the silence of the end call beep echoing in the room. I spent the night pacing, planning, imagining confrontations. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, my decision was made. There would be no dramatic confrontations or tearful apologies. Mary's deceit had severed us completely. When she returned home later that morning, her face tired and her smile forced, I was ready. The divorce papers were laid out on the kitchen table, a pen beside them. Tom, what's this? Her voice wavered as she touched the papers, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion. It's over, Mary. I know about Jay, and God knows who else. We're done. My voice was calm, the clarity of my decision anchoring me. She tried to explain, tears mingling with pleas, but I was resolute. Hurt had turned to resolve, and resolve had forged the path to retribution. By the time she left, papers signed, the woman I had married was a stranger, and our paths were set to part forever. As she drove away, the weight of my wedding band felt like a shackle. I slipped it off, the cold metal a stark reminder of what had been. It was the end of our story together, but the beginning of something new for me, freedom from betrayal, and a fresh start. The plot had just begun to unfold, and the intrigue of how deep the betrayal went and what form my revenge would take lingered in the air, promising more revelations in the chapters to come. The freshly signed divorce papers lay heavy on the kitchen table, their weight symbolic of the severed ties between Mary and me. The quiet of the house mocked me with memories of a life that once brimmed with love and trust. I couldn't stay there, surrounded by the ghosts of deceit. I grabbed my keys and headed out, driven by a need to uncover the full extent of the betrayal. My first stop was the office where Jay worked, based on the address I found online. The glass doors of the high-rise building were imposing, but my resolve pushed me through. I walked straight to the reception, my expression as steely as my purpose. I need to see Jay. It's urgent, I demanded, my tone leaving no room for objection. The receptionist, a young woman with wary eyes, picked up the phone and dialed. Within minutes, Jay appeared, his face pale, his steps hesitant. The lobby felt too open, too public for the confrontation that was about to unfold. We need to talk. Now, I stated, leading the way to a nearby coffee shop that offered some semblance of privacy. Once seated, I didn't waste time. How long has this been going on with Mary? Jay sighed, running a hand through his hair. A few months. I told you, I didn't know she was married. She said she was separated, looking to start over. I believed her. The simplicity of his confession stung. And you never thought to confirm? Never saw a hint of her lies? He shook his head, his eyes avoiding mine. I guess I should have. I'm sorry, man. I was played too, it seems. His apology did little to quench the thirst for answers. Were there others? I asked, the question sharp and cutting. I don't know. I really don't, Jay replied, his voice strained. The coffee between us grew cold as we talked, the details he provided painting a picture of a relationship built on lies. Every word was a confirmation of Mary's duplicity, and with each revelation, my path became clearer. I needed to ensure that this deception didn't go unpunished. After leaving Jay, my next step was to delve deeper into Mary's life, to understand the full breadth of her betrayal. I hired a private investigator, an old contact who had helped a friend in a similar situation. We met in his dimly lit office, the walls lined with evidence of his successes in uncovering secrets. I need everything. Phone records, emails, locations, everything you can find about my wife's affairs, I instructed, the words cold and calculated. He nodded, his eyes sharp. You'll have it. Give me 48 hours. As I drove home, the city lights blurred by rain streaking the windshield, my mind raced with scenarios of what he might find. The sense of betrayal was now mingled with a fierce desire for retribution. Whatever came next, I was ready for it. Mary had turned our marriage into a game of deception, and now it was my turn to play. The next 2 days dragged on with the heaviness of pending storm clouds. My mind was a battlefield of emotion and strategy, oscillating between the hurt of betrayal and the meticulous planning of retribution. Each ring of the phone felt like a harbinger of the tempest to come. Finally, the private investigator called. Tom, we need to meet. I've got something you should see. His office was dimly lit as usual, the air thick with the anticipation of revelations. He spread out photographs and documents across his desk with the precision of a seasoned strategist laying out his plans. These are the findings, he began, pointing to a series of photographs showing Mary with not just Jay, but another man, someone I didn't recognize. She's been quite busy, Tom. The guy in these photos is not Jay. He's someone else, been seeing her for over a year now. The color drained from my face as I absorbed the scope of her deceit. And here, he continued, handing me a stack of phone records, are her call logs and messages. It's not just personal, some of these go back even before you had any suspicions. I scanned the documents, each line a testament to the double life Mary had been leading. My heart pounded, not just with grief but with rising fury. The pieces of my revenge began to slot into place with cold, hard precision. Thank you, I managed to say, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I paid him, and left with the documents that were more than just paper, they were ammunition. Back home, I pored over the details, plotting each step of my revenge. It wasn't just about confronting Mary anymore. It was about ensuring she faced the full consequences of her actions. The following day, I set my plan into motion. I called Jay, the one unwitting participant in this saga, and met him again. This time, the conversation was terse, more a briefing than a discussion. Jay, you're not the only one. Look at these, I said, sliding the photographs across the table to him. His face paled as he looked at the images, his betrayal apparent as he realized the depth of Mary's deceit. What are you going to do? He asked, a hint of fear in his voice. Expose her. Not just to the pain she caused but to everyone who thinks they know her, I replied, my voice hard as steel. And you're going to help me? Reluctantly, Jay agreed to cooperate. His part was simple, to be at a gathering I was planning, where friends, family, and crucially, the other man, would be present. It was time everyone saw Mary for who she truly was. The night of the gathering, my nerves were taut, every sense sharpened. As the guests arrived, the air tingled with the usual pleasantries, but underneath it all was a current of my brewing storm. Mary walked in, radiant, unaware of the impending fallout. As she mingled, I watched, my resolve hardening further. Finally, I called for attention, and the room hushed. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice echoing slightly in the silent room. "We're here to celebrate truth and unmask lies." Mary's smile faltered, her eyes searching mine for a clue. I nodded to Jay, who stood and began to reveal everything, his voice loud and clear. As he spoke, I watched the color drain from Mary's face, her eyes wide with horror. The room erupted into murmurs and whispers, the air charged with shock and scandal. Mary tried to speak, to deny, but the evidence was irrefutable. She looked at me, betrayal in her eyes, not from infidelity, but from the exposure. As the party ended, the guests dispersed, the whispers turning to judgment. Mary was left isolated, her facade shattered. I stood apart, the cold satisfaction of retribution settling in my chest. The storm had broken, and as I watched her leave, defeated and alone, I knew that my revenge was complete. But the echo of her deceit lingered, a reminder that while the battle was won, the scars would remain. The intrigue of how I would heal, and what lay ahead for Mary in her newfound isolation, hung in the air, promising further developments in our fractured tale. The aftermath of the exposure party left a trail of emotional wreckage. Mary's circle of friends and colleagues had dwindled, her reputation tarnished by the revelations of her deceit. Despite the satisfaction of revenge, a hollow victory was all that remained. I was free from her lies, but the liberation came with its own set of chains, those of lingering anger and unresolved pain. In the quiet solitude that my home now echoed, I planned the final act of retribution, one that would sever all ties with Mary and her deceitful entanglements. My mind whirled with possibilities, each more severe than the last, until clarity hit with the precision of a well-aimed strike. I began by ensuring that the financial ruin she inflicted upon herself through divorce and social exile was just the beginning. Using the evidence gathered, I contacted her workplace. With a calm and firm tone, I explained to her employer the full extent of her misconduct, not omitting any detail of her using company resources and time to facilitate her affairs. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention," her employer had said, a note of icy professionalism in his voice. The call ended with the implication clear: Mary would face professional consequences as well. But the most insidious part of my plan involved the other man, the one Mary had been seeing even longer than Jay. With some digging, I discovered his identity and learned that he too was married. Armed with this knowledge, I arranged a meeting with his wife, presenting her with the evidence of the affair. The meeting was brief, her shock and anger mirroring my own from days past. "I'll handle it from here," she had assured me, her voice trembling with betrayal. I left, knowing her actions would add another layer to Mary's impending isolation. As the final pieces of my plan fell into place, I felt the culmination of my efforts nearing. It was time for the last encounter with Mary, the final goodbye that would seal the fate of our fractured paths. I invited her to a public park, a neutral place where the autumn leaves mirrored the decay of our relationship. She arrived, a shadow of the vibrant woman I once knew, her eyes wary and defeated. "Tom, why are we here? What more do you want?" she asked, her voice low and tired. "To say goodbye, Mary. To end this for good," I responded, my tone resolute. Her eyes searched mine, looking for a sign of the love that once bound us, but finding none. "Is this your victory? Are you satisfied?" she whispered. "This isn't about victory, Mary. It's about consequences. About ensuring you understand the depth of your betrayal," I said, each word deliberate, reflecting the cold finality of our situation. Her face crumpled, the final realization of her complete and utter downfall breaking through her composure. "So, this is it then. We are nothing. "We were nothing the moment you chose deception over our vows," I stated. The park around us was silent, bearing witness to our final, bitter parting. With that, I turned and walked away, the crisp autumn air filling the space between us as we parted ways forever. I didn't look back. The chapter of Mary was closed, sealed by the hatred of betrayal and the ruthless execution of my revenge. As I walked away, the surprise was not in the ending, which we both saw coming, but in my own transformation. I had become someone forged in the fires of betrayal, insidious in my methods and violent in my retribution. The realization was a shock, a mirror held up to the depths I had sunk to enact revenge. This final act of vengeance had liberated me from Mary, but now I faced a new challenge, to rediscover who I was beyond the hate and vengeance that had consumed me. The story ended not with reconciliation, but with the stark revelation of what betrayal could turn a person into. As I disappeared into the anonymity of the crowded street, the real intrigue was what lay ahead for both of us, forever changed by the deceit and its aftermath.